He looked like nothing more than a quiet, dusty gardener, but the day she offered him a single glass of water changed both their lives forever, because some kindnesses don't just touch hearts, they reveal secrets powerful enough to rewrite destinies. In a mansion filled with pride and cold glances, only one girl noticed the man everyone else ignored. The sun hung low over the grand estate, casting golden light across trimmed hedges and marble pathways. Workers moved silently, servants avoided eye contact, and laughter inside the mansion carried a tone of arrogance. Among them all was a man no one seemed to see, a gardener with worn clothes, rough hands, and a quiet presence. He worked every day without complaint, tending flowers that others admired but never credited him for. Elena was different. She had arrived at the estate reluctantly, sent to live with her wealthy aunt after losing her parents. Unlike the others, she wasn't used to luxury, and the pride that floated through the mansion suffocated her. She noticed things, small things. Like how the gardener worked under the scorching sun without pause. Like how no one offered him even a simple greeting. One afternoon, as she walked through the garden, she saw him struggling to lift a heavy bucket. His movements were slow, not from weakness, but from exhaustion. The air was dry, the heat unbearable. Without thinking twice, Elena stepped inside, filled a glass with cool water, and returned. "Here," she said softly. The gardener looked up, surprised. His eyes, deep, calm, and strangely noble, met hers. For a moment, it felt like time paused. "No one has ever done that before," he said, his voice steady but filled with something unspoken. Elena smiled gently. "It's just water." But to him, it wasn't. From that day, Elena made it a habit. Every afternoon, she brought him water. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. But a quiet bond formed between them, one built on simple kindness and unspoken understanding. Inside the mansion, whispers began. "Why is she always talking to that gardener? It's embarrassing. She doesn't belong here anyway." Her aunt warned her one evening, her tone sharp. "You must remember who you are. Don't lower yourself." But Elena only nodded silently. Deep down, she knew something they didn't. The gardener carried himself differently. There was dignity in his silence, strength in his humility. And perhaps, a hidden story. One evening, as the sky turned shades of violet, Elena found him sitting by the old fountain. "You don't seem like you belong here," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Neither do you." Their eyes met again, and this time, the connection felt deeper. Real. But what Elena didn't know, was that everything she believed about him was only half the truth. Chapter 2 Hook. The day the gardener disappeared, was the day the entire world learned who he really was. The next morning, the garden was empty. No tools. No gardener. No trace. Elena felt a strange unease settle in her chest. She asked the staff, but no one cared enough to answer. To them, he was just a worker who had left. Replaceable. Forgettable. But to her, he wasn't. Days passed, and the mansion buzzed with unusual excitement. A grand announcement was coming. Important guests were arriving. The estate was being prepared like never before. Elena stood quietly among the crowd as luxurious cars lined the entrance. People dressed in elegance, their voices filled with anticipation. Then, a black car stopped at the center. The door opened. And her world shifted. Stepping out, dressed in refined attire, stood the man she knew as the gardener. But he was no gardener. Gasps filled the air. "That's Duke Alexander. The heir, the most powerful noble in the region." Elena's breath caught. Her heart pounded as memories rushed through her mind, the quiet smiles, the tired eyes, the simple conversations. It was him. He walked forward with confidence, no longer hidden behind dust and silence. His presence commanded respect, yet his eyes searched the crowd, until they found her. For a moment, everything else faded. Later, he approached her, no guards, no distance. "You knew," Elena whispered, her voice trembling. He shook his head softly. "No. I hoped someone would see me, not my title." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to know if kindness still existed without power," he said. "And you proved that it does." Tears filled her eyes, not of sadness, but of realization. While others ignored him, judged him, or looked down on him, she had simply offered water. Not knowing she was offering respect to a duke. Not knowing she was touching the heart of a man who had everything, except sincerity. "I didn't do anything special," she said. He smiled gently. "You did everything." In the days that followed, everything changed, but not in the way people expected. Elena wasn't suddenly transformed into someone else. She remained the same, kind, grounded, real. And that's exactly why he chose her. Not for status. Not for beauty. But for the simple act of seeing him when no one else did. In a world obsessed with appearances, she chose compassion. And in return, she gained something far greater than wealth or power, a love built on truth. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can reveal the greatest truths. And sometimes, the person you help without expecting anything in return, is the one who changes your life forever.